Welcome back to another episode of the Outsider Sports Baseball Podcast. Corey, Jason, Dylan, Mel, John, Pauline. Opening day is come and gone. First series in the books. Lots of stories coming out. The biggest, a bat. We haven't had a season free of, equipment-related controversy. Last year was the pitch com. The year before, you had the spider tack sticky stuff. You had the juice balls before that. So this is just another one in the long line of baseball question marks. Is it good? Is it bad? Is it cheating? Is it not? So to give a little backstory, the Yankees hired an MIT physics professor to join their hitting ranks. They have Matt Blake, a whiz. He created some of the best pitching bullpen arms in baseball. You could take a nobody, turn him into something. Turn Clay Holmes with a over 6 career ERA into the Mets' #1 starting pitcher. So they tried to find that, the hitting version of Matt Blake. And while this guy isn't a hitting coach, Aaron Leonhardt, he was a physics professor at Michigan. He joined the Yankees, and then he was with their hitting development. And then he was trying to figure out how to make them better. So during the 2023 season, the story goes, he was asking guys, what do you guys need to be better? That was after the 2022 season, I believe, set the all-time record for lowest batting average in a season. And players said they just want to make more contact. That's what would make them better. More contact. So he's trying to figure it out, and his solution was to elongate the barrel. Now that ran into some issues. One, it made bats heavier, so the gains made from swinging the bat, you would lose in exit velo and just swing speed. So thinking about that and having to fix that, he decided, you know what? Trying to keep the same ounces, 31, 32 ounces generally. What if we move the barrel down a few inches? Instead of wasting the barrel parts of it at the end of the bat, because if you hit a ball off the knob at the end of it, it's not really going anywhere. So that's wasted material up there. That's barrel and weight that's being of no use to the hitter. So he decided if they move it down to a lower area where the players then hit the ball more often, and you can tailor that to the location on the bat a player hits the ball, then that'll create, more barrels and better contact. Now, it became big this season after the Yankees' big opening series win, especially on Saturday's game versus the Brewers. But it was being used by some players last season, notably Giancarlo Stanton, who used it in the regular season and postseason, hitting all those home runs. That was a torpedo bat. So it was a big story. The Yanks are popularizing it, but there's a long list of players using it. Adley Rutschman, Jose Trevino, Dansby Swanson, Nico Horner, Ryan Jeffers, Francisco Lindor, Cody Bellinger, Jazz Chisholm, Paul Goldschmidt, Anthony Volpe, Austin Wells, Junior Caminero, Davis Schneider. Those are the guys throughout the first series have used it. Now, Rhys Hoskins says he's ordered it. A number of other players have said they're going to try it out. But I really want to hear what you guys think of this, because people were calling the Yankees out for cheating, and I just don't think that this is that.
I mean, it's not. And I can tell you flatly it's not, because before every game, players give the MLB 2 bats that they want approved to use. MLB has been approving these bats not just for this year, but last year, like you mentioned. So it's not against the rules. The MLB is approving these bats. They're checking them the same way that they would check the pitchers for sticky stuff mid-inning. They're checking these bats pre-game. Like, they're good to go. I think it's good for baseball, because I think we reached a point where pitching was getting a little too dominant, especially in that 2022 season. Like you mentioned, pitching was at an all-time high, and in an effort to make the game more entertaining, baseball looked to include the ghost runner, the pitch clock, some things that didn't settle right with baseball purists, and maybe the torpedo bat won't either. But the torpedo bat's going to give a more entertaining product. Look at the lineup that used it the most, the Yankees. They just set their team record for most runs in the first 3-game series. They set a team record for home runs with 9. Not everybody, even on the Yankees, uses it. Aaron Judge, who's off to the hottest start of anybody on the team, doesn't use it. So adding more diversity in how batters can, bat and approach the game, giving an additional layer for pitchers to have to think about too. Can't just work everybody inside, because if we jam them, their bat's now made for it. I think it gives hitters, I don't want to say a fair playing field, but another leg to make it a more competitive setting. And I'm a big fan of it.
I mean, out of all the changes that they've tried to make the game more entertaining the past like few years, this is probably the one that's like I feel like the least. I don't know. I can't think of a word, but like invasive. Like,
Invasive.
yeah, invasive to it. Because I mean, like you were using this last year, and like no one even noticed. Like I feel like it wasn't even a big story. Like no one talked about it. It's just being talked about because it's the Yankees, and a lot of
Well,
no one likes
and
the
the pitcher
Yankees.
on the Brewers,
Yeah,
McGill. Well, since it's the Yankees, they'll let it slide. I was
yeah.
like, shut
It's
up,
legal though.
dude.
It's within the parameters. It's within the parameters in the rule
Yeah,
book.
but it's not even new.
No,
It's
it's
not
not.
new.
It's just the volume is new.
Yes.
And that is what is tripping people up, because last year there was a handful of people trying this out. And now with the Yankees, you have more than half of a lineup that's at least trying it all at
Right.
once. And then, Yankees fans will know this. They've kind of pretty much just done this to the Milwaukee Brewers the last couple of years, regardless of the bats. But that, added to these torpedo bats is what's causing the problem. Plus, everybody loves a reason to hate on Yankees, Dodgers, Phillies, Red Sox, Astros. Big brand, big success. Let's hate it.
You're right. And, outside the Yankees, where I believe I named 5 players using it, only one other team has more than one guy, and that's the Cubs. Nico Horner also went hitless to start it off. So it's not like it's that big of a benefit. Volpe only had 2 hits in that opening series. Now, both were home runs, but there was a lot of talk about how it makes players who suck better. That's more like what Dave Portnoy was trying to rationalize it as. But
well, he was ridiculous, because he was clearly impression farming, because he said that Judge was using it.
Yeah, I mean, it was pretty funny. And then you had Jazz going after him on Twitter.
Yeah.
But saying that this helps players who can't get their hands through the zone because you're getting sawed off if it's going towards the label. And, that is on the Yankees, especially Michael Kay, for putting out some misinformation about it, basically saying they moved it more towards the label, where, one, it's different for every player. Each player's new barrel is suited for their own needs, but it also generalizes it to the point where it makes people who have Portnoy's opinion kind of right when that's all they hear. Because when you say they move it towards the label because they're getting sawed off and that's just where they're going to put the barrel now, of course that's not right. That seems a little off. But if you say they move it towards where, 1, the sweet spot is, and 2, they're just utilizing the barrel more. They're almost shortening the barrel in just a different spot.
Well, they're just personalizing it to where they make contact.
Where they make contact, but they're also getting rid of if you picture what a bat looks like, not a torpedo, a regular bat, you have a good 2 or 3 inches towards the end of the bat. That's all barrel that just isn't being utilized, because if you hit it there, nothing's going to happen. You're hitting it off the end of the bat.
I just think the context you provided at the beginning, though, of when this happened, right after the worst hitting season of all time. So the players had to do something to combat how good pitching was getting.
Yeah.
The league felt that they had to do something to combat how good pitching was getting to make a more entertaining product. So is it going to be banned? I don't think so. In the NFL right now, there's a should they ban the tush push, brotherly shove. And the argument for that is you could throw all the safety garbage out the window. It's boring. Aesthetically, it is not a fun play to watch. The Yankees were fun to watch. Teams that are crushing the baseball are fun to watch. Baseball themselves is trying to play more into offense. So if these bats help offense, they're not going away. They're going to be more utilized.
Yeah, I mean, let's not kid ourselves, though, when it comes to the tush push. It's not fun when you're on the other end of it. But, Dylan, you can be honest. Every time the Eagles line up to do it, it's pretty fun for you.
It's just fun now because everybody hates it. to think that it's impossible that the Eagles could get 1 yard with Saquon Barkley is like also just pretty comical.
I don't know. I've seen it.
I mean, I said the Eagles.
Fair enough. Fair enough. But when it comes to the bowling pin torpedo bat, I consider myself almost like a baseball purist. I think whoever implemented the ghost runner rule should be banned for life from baseball. They have no business being
Yeah,
anywhere
for
near the
anybody
sport.
new, Corey is the 70-year-old man who watches baseball,
I
and
hate the fact that
I
there's a
am the
clock.
new guy.
Like I hate that there's a clock with baseball. Baseball's literally supposed to be a timeless classic.
And I love both of these editions. So maybe my opinion on the torpedo bat, you could throw it out the window
I
if you're a
dislike
baseball
But I
I'm
purist.
like
with
the
Corey,
torpedo
though.
bat because to me that's what a change to baseball should be. Same way I support adding a secondary base connected to first base to prevent injury.
I don't know how
The
they haven't
batter
done
runner?
that yet. That seems like a no-brainer.
That's a no-brainer that doesn't affect the sport. To me, that's smart injury. It's only something that's being utilized for the batter runner. You know, the white part of the base, quote unquote, is what's in play. This is just for when you're running down the line, so you don't have as many collisions. So something like that is a type of change I like to see. I don't like to see the Buster Posey catcher rule. To me, that's soft. That's why I don't believe Buster Posey's a Hall of Famer, but I have personal issues towards Buster Posey. The torpedo bat is what it should be. That's the type of change that works and makes sense. The same way the pitchers implementing a sweeper or a splinker, as we're seeing other pitchers
Yeah,
use.
I mean, we're seeing all these different pitchers come in with all the. I mean, we got Paul Skeens, who's now unleashing 98-mile-per-hour cutters, but the offensive player can't move the barrel of his bat down a little. Like, give me a break.
Right. So, like, to me, that's the type of change that makes sense. Now, if you look at, the history of a bat, it's been very similar going back, 150 years of baseball. The only things that have changed were like from the days of Babe Ruth, who used a 44-inch, 36-ounce bat or something like that, or 36-inch 44-ounce bat. He used a big one. They've shaved off ounces as pitches have got faster to keep up with the velocity. But now that velocity has, I don't want to say stalled, but we haven't seen, the fastest pitch in baseball in a while. More pitchers are throwing, over 100, upper 90s, but we're not seeing that 105, 106, 107 mile an hour. So I think we've hit a plateau with velocity. It's the movement, the spin rate. That's what we're kind of on that new frontier of. RPMs. We saw it with the sticky stuff. How many rotations per minute do these baseballs have? How are they spinning? And the best way to combat all that movement would be to lower the barrel, make as much contact as possible. And that's how you kind of get the best of both worlds. You get to keep all these nasty pitches, but you make the pitchers make the pitch still. You don't let them get away just on filth alone. These hitters are able to make contact. So I think the torpedo bat is here to stay. I think we're only going to see more and more improvements on it. And it's kind of fun to see the Yankees for the first time that I can remember on the kind of beginning of the cutting edge, because they always seem to have lagged behind.
Yeah, no, I agree. Nobody has it worse than Yankees fans. Let us have this one.
We need it. Braves fans, though, are also struggling. Ben's favorite player, Jurickson Profar, popped for PEDs.
No victory lap for Ben due to his internet connection. This has to have been a planned drop from Profar. He saw last week on the pod, Ben's internet couldn't handle it anymore. It tapped out. He wasn't going to be on, and Profar said, all right, passing. Drop the tweet.
I mean, there's not too much information out there, but we've seen guys in the past get, suspended for PEDs, and they're only using it, for fertility issues. That's in other sports too. I've seen in football, especially. I remember Golden Tate got hit with that. Guys who are trying to have children, either them or their partners having fertility issues, and they need, a substance that they didn't realize was banned. It was provided by their doctor who thought it wasn't on the banned list. It could have been trace amounts. We've seen Fernando Tatis Jr., I think, had it in like a fungal infection cream when he got hit with PEDs back during his second season.
Sometimes
Do you guys remember that?
Sometimes it's just like an injury thing too.
I mean, obviously they're trying to come back from injury, but
Yeah.
I think players are too smart now, especially knowing how the league tests, to actually just inject themselves with steroids like they're, Barry Bonds or Roger Clemens or A-Rod.
Yeah, well, what he failed for, Profar, I was looking up the tweet from Heyman. The drug HCG is a masking agent used to restart the natural testosterone production after a steroid cycle. Manny Ramirez was also popped for this previously.
So like he wasn't actually popped for using a steroid. He was popped for having a masking agent in his body. Now, what's it called, Dylan?
HCG,
HCG.
lowercase h, if that helps you.
Right. So here, it's used to trigger ovulation in women with fertility issues, and it's also used to stimulate testosterone to help men with fertility issues get that going again. So, like I kind of just said, it could be a fertility thing, which seems to be the case for most of the time. But
Well,
that
yeah,
could
and
be
just like every baseball player and every athlete ever, he had no idea that he was using this.
right. It could be a very convenient excuse. It could also be
Yeah,
a weight loss drug. Maybe
and
Profar's
it,
trying to shed a couple pounds.
yeah, and it's tough to really pinpoint exactly when it happened. The career 230 hitter did jump up to about 280 2 seasons ago, and then all of a sudden got a nice contract. And 80 game suspension. More importantly for the Braves, not eligible for postseason play.
Yeah, that's
If they get there at this rate.
John, as a division rival of the Braves. How are you feeling about this?
Oh, pretty good. I mean,
Yeah,
it's good for the Phillies not to have to deal with Profar. So, I mean, it hurts the Braves more because I mean, like the Braves, I think are the favorite to win the division. When we were doing the previews, I think what is it? The Dakota had them winning it, right?
yeah.
So, I mean, this definitely helps out a
Well, how
ton.
are you feeling about the Phillies start to the year? Kind of walk us through where your mindset's at with that.
Uh, well, so far, like the only game I was able to catch was the opening day game, which went in the extra innings and was a hell of a game. But I mean, they looked like they had trouble hitting to start off with, but that was because of the shadows and stuff. I mean, you had Mackenzie Gore going for a career high 13 strikeouts.
I mean, we talked about that in the preview, NL East preview, though. We said, like, Mackenzie Gore, player to watch. If the Nats are going to be good this year, it's on the back of Mackenzie Gore being the ace that they have eventually traded for. One game in, but best career game for the
Yeah.
guy.
I mean, he had some help from the shadows, but I mean, he looked good. He looked
I
good.
mean, 15
That sounds like
strikeouts. It's
excuses.
15
Come on, John.
strikeouts.
So
I'm sure Devers is having issues with the shadows too, right?
yeah, we'll talk about that later.
I mean, I caught that Phillies game once the Yankee game ended, and that's kind of when the Phillies started doing well. I know Bohm had a big hit.
Huge double.
Yeah, and
Huge double.
that offense
Yeah,
came alive late.
I've
Yeah,
watched 3 or 4 Philly games thus far because they've also coincided well with the Yankee games. They've like started right at the end of the Yankee game, and I go, "All right, flip," and then it's like just don't leave my couch for 6 hours, rot and watch baseball. But I thought pitching has been pretty strong for them thus far. Like a lot of teams early on, the offense can be hit or miss. Long ball has gotten them out of a couple jams. Schwarber's been pretty big today. They had that really big, I believe it was the 8th inning against the Rockies, 7th or 8th, one of those two. Castellanos goes yard, Kepler goes yard, Schwarber goes yard, and Mundo Sosa, big double. Christopher Sanchez shoved, doesn't get the win, unfortunately. But I think the Phillies are kind of what we talked about they would be, personally. I think that this team has all the talent to go win a World Series. The Braves' slow start mixed with Profar now missing time. We'll talk about the Mets, but they look about what we all expected to, besides Ben. The NL East, we're a week in, but feels like the Phillies are in the driver's seat. I mean, the Marlins are technically in the driver's seat, but the Phillies are the team I'd bet on still.
Well, here we talked about Aaron Leonhardt earlier, right? The guy that invented the torpedo bat. He's not with the Yankees anymore. He's with the Marlins. Maybe there's a connection there.
Yeah, if I see a bigger sample size of less than 4 days of the Marlins being good, I might buy in.
I don't know. I see a lot of teams panicking after 4 days, a lot of their fans panicking. So I think it's time to crown the Marlins. Nobody's catching them.
I mean, if we're crowning a team, maybe it'd be the undefeated team.
The Dodgers?
Them and the other undefeated team.
Well,
Crown
tell
'em
me
up.
about now that you bring them up, tell me about that undefeated team that shall remain nameless.
I
How-
mean,
how are you feeling about them?
listen, the Yankees, it's tough to feel negative as a fan right now because 36 runs scored in 3 games, a new record, 9 home runs in 1 game, a new team record, and the offense is absolutely booming. This was kind of our obviously this type of pace is not going to stay. They're not going to continue to average 12 runs a game.
Says
But
you.
but this is what we talked about when we discussed losing Soto could be a benefit in some ways, as now this allows you to have a deeper lineup. Even with Stanton out, you still have 6 guys at the top of the lineup that are producing for the Yankees pretty consistently, with Goldschmidt, Bellinger, Judge, Wells, Jazz, Volpe 2 home runs. And then you have a kind of let's figure it out area. You do have Giancarlo Stanton, who looks like progress is being made from all the reports that have come out. He
Yeah.
is tracking to return and he is tracking to come back around Memorial Day. So, this team will be a much deeper lineup. The pitching has been okay. We had Rodon had a decent start. Devin Williams had a scare, but we talked about that. A lot of emotions. First save coming off the Pete Alonso home run versus former team. Who knows him better? Fried comes out and has a pretty terrible start, if we're being completely honest. It was just so overshadowed.
I mean, dude, he had 4 balls leave the infield.
Well, it was a terrible performance with Fried on the mound.
Right. Optically,
2 earned runs, and then the defense behind him, they just decided they were only playing offense. Pablo Reyes, you're done at third base when Max Fried plays. I don't know what the analytics team was thinking on that, and I do fully blame the analytics team because Max Fried induces the most ground balls to third base, yet Pablo Reyes, who can't field third base, is the third baseman that day, not Cabrera or Peraza.
So this is how it was. They didn't want Cabrera facing the lefty. Cabrera is better from the left side. They're kind of making him go away from switch hitting.
Yep.
Reyes had a great spring, or at least great compared to Peraza, who had such a terrible spring. There was talks about him not even making the roster and getting DFA'd because he had no more options. They kept him around and did end up hitting a big home run, but they gave Reyes the nod over Peraza due to the spring performance and riding the hot hand. Now, I don't think
it didn't cost them, but I'm done with it.
I think they're done with it too. It doesn't make sense, especially given, Peraza's now the hot hand. He's a great plus defender. It makes no more sense. And I think once Schmidt comes back, or Hamilton even, who should be back from his stint at the earliest convenience, I think they don't lose a pitcher. I think they get rid of Reyes because they just don't need him anymore on the roster.
Yeah, I could certainly see that. But yeah, as a Yankees fan, riding high, the bullpen, we said in the preview, best bullpen in the AL, maybe in baseball, competitive with the Dodgers. They've looked every bit of that, aside from the little hiccup. But Devin Williams, if that's your hiccup, I think everything will be all right.
Yeah. What would you say outside of the 5-error game defense is your biggest concern with the Yankees right now, if you had to say there was one?
Again, I just, it's going to sound very privileged, but my concern is, can this team play playoff baseball? They're going to be there. And at the end of the day, I don't think that that's a ludicrous thing to say because I wouldn't just be saying it about my team. That's my thought on we know the Dodgers can, but that was every conversation we had about the Dodgers last year was they're great in the regular season. We've seen it. Can they play in the playoffs? My thoughts about the Phillies this year is they're great in the regular season. Can they perform in the playoffs? And those 3 teams to me are World Series or bust. And, the Phillies and Yankees, I think their fans could swallow it if they lost to the Dodgers and be like, okay, like fine, is what it
I think
is.
we got the one loss out of the way for the Yankee fans. If they lose to the Dodgers again, you can see a Yankee Stadium like burned down by some of the more crazier
No,
folks.
I don't think so.
I think there'll be a
I think
riot.
any team would be mad if their team loses the World Series, but if this current Yankees roster faced the Dodgers in the World Series, on paper, that's not a series the Yankees are supposed to win. I think as long as this team wins the games they're supposed to win. But my concern is when we're not hitting 5 home runs a game, can they produce offensively
Right? Can they
consistently?
win those 1-2-0 games?
Yeah, because the Brewers looked pretty bad again today.
Yeah,
So, are the Brewers bad? Are the Yankees good? Or was it just both really meeting head on there?
yeah. And for me, the thing that really kind of concerns me is Jason Dominguez and his usage. He played opening day and got replaced late for defensive, purposes.
And that looks like the role that because that happened multiple times. So
Right,
that's
he got
the
DH'd.
role. That's what Grisham's going to be. He's going to
Right,
come in at the end of close games.
DH'd on Saturday's game, and then on Sunday's game, the Yankees won by another like 9 runs, and he was still taken out late defensively. Joe Girardi said, this is, what he kind of wished they'd done with Gary Sanchez, where he said Sanchez was a great defensive catcher, but the fan base kind of in the media got it in their minds that he wasn't because he had very poorly timed pass balls, and that became his issue, that he was always a pass ball guy. Just like a quarterback who doesn't really have turnover issues, if he throws a clutch pick or fumbles the ball at the worst possible time, they'll be looked at somebody with turnover issues, even if that's not necessarily the case. So if you take Dominguez out in games that he doesn't really need to be in,
Yeah,
then
I didn't
it
like
helps
taking
not
him out
yourself.
with the 9-run lead. I thought that was a good time to leave him out there, but
That yeah,
I didn't mind taking. They said that they were confident in him in the outfield, and then immediately showed you that they lied.
absolutely, and that's
Because
what
if
I'm
you
really
were
concerned
confident
about.
in him in the outfield, you wouldn't have taken him out. But
I
he's
feel like
gonna
some
have to play out there because you're better off with him than Stanton left.
Yeah,
I just feel like sometimes though at the start of the season, teams do a lot of funky stuff with like moving players around and stuff.
I do think there's a little bit of get everybody involved early on. That way nobody's cold and nobody feels left out. And when you're
right.
up 9 runs, you can get everybody involved.
Like I don't think Trent Grisham got his first at bat until like April 18th last year.
Yeah, because all those games versus the Astros were close.
Right.
The Yankees started off 4-0, I think 5-0 even, but
Yes.
they were in close games continuously.
It is kind of funny though that Juan Soto's first series with the Yankees and the Mets were versus the Astros to wildly opposite results.
I
Whereas
mean,
game one versus the Astros as a Met, he ended the game with the runner as the winning run or at least a tying run and
yeah.
struck out. Whereas the Yankees last year, he saved the game by making a stellar defensive play, throwing out the game-winning run from right field.
Same city, different aura.
What
Money,
aura?
money over winning.
And I'm sure that's going to end up frustrating him, especially if the Mets woes continue. The Mets are a
When?
team that have
I mean, like, and I'm not even saying that one is like a hater. Like that one is just when. Like their woes are going to continue. This is
right.
not a team that is built for regular season success. We talked about this. Their woes in the 162 will continue. If they get into the playoffs, you don't want to see them.
Yeah, like the Mets are a team that you always count out through June, and then they'll kind of like pick it up July on. Well, I just don't know how the Mets locker room, which has shown plenty of cracks the past few years, especially with Lindor and how he's handled being a leader. I
And not for nothing, is Soto a good leader? Like, I think Soto very much so benefited from being the two to Judge. I don't think Soto strikes me as a clubhouse leader, which, by the way, what's he, 24 years old? Not many people at 24 years old would get $700 million and be this humble leader. So I'm not, crapping on him for it.
26.
26 years old and gets $700 million. Not many people are just ready to
Yeah.
lead a group of men at that age with that kind of money in their pocket. And they're kind of already like, well, win or lose, I played good in the stats. Like, that could certainly be his mentality. And I kind of think it is.
You've
Like,
seen it
win
plenty
or
of times.
lose, I play good and the money comes in.
And he has an opt-out.
Yeah, but the Mets can then void the opt-out by giving more money. But it's just one of those things. You've seen it time and time again where guys kind of get their bag and then they kind of just don't care anymore. Especially with baseball. Baseball is a fully guaranteed sport. There is nothing that can happen that'll prevent Soto from collecting his $800 million from the Mets. I don't know. I'm not nothing, but almost nothing.
Yeah. We don't need to be super negative, but I do think Clay Holmes as your day one starter kind of told the story of your season.
Though I'm not really, if I'm a Met fan, I wouldn't be too worried. I think that they're going to be in the thick of it. They're going to be in the playoff race.
I just don't think this is their year. I'm not one of those, salty Yankees fans that thinks that they could never figure it out with Soto. I'm sure they're going to have plenty of competitive teams with Soto and be in World Series races. I just don't think it's this year as currently constructed. I think they needed to bring in a Corbin Burns. I think they needed to land one of those pitchers, and they didn't. And now going into a playoff series, even fully healthy, you're opening up with Kodai Senga, Sean Manaea, and Clay Holmes. That's okay, but if you're going up against the Dodgers, who are going to roll out Blake Snell, Glasnow, Yamamoto, or the Phillies, who are going to roll out Wheeler, Nola, Ranger Suarez, or any of these teams, like, they will have to slug their way to playoff wins again if they get in. And I just don't think it's sustainable to win a World Series.
I want to read a thread of text I got from one of my friends yesterday who's a big Met fan. This is in a group chat with me and a few friends, and he had a very funny crash out that I think kind of embodies overreaction and just how poorly the Mets played. Baseball season is great. Too bad the Mets are terrible. If they don't put up 5+ tomorrow night, I'm going to be fuming. Time to score some runs. Freaking Lindor, wake the heck up. He went 0 for again today. 0 for
I have
again
a feeling
today.
that person did not say heck.
He didn't say anything. And then, we referred to him saying he sounds like Frank the Tank. And he goes, Frank is always right. They are brutal. Don't hit. At least they pitched a little. No one can hit. Not Lindor. Not Alonso. Not Nimmo. Not Vientos. Not even Soto. He should be on base 3 times with an extra base hit every game.
Well, that's an expectation.
So he kind of went on a big crash out with that. And I think that's going to be another issue with Soto is the expectations for him are so high because he doesn't have a Judge to kind of be the face to take that heat off of him. Because if Soto ever played poorly,
he is viewed as their savior.
Right.
And where he's saving was where they were best at last year. Their best strength was hitting. This is the Bengals investing all their money in Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, and T. Higgins. Like, this is the baseball version of that.
They need to get a Trey Hendrickson back.
I guess. Like, the Mets let pitchers leave.
That's what I'm saying.
They needed more.
Corbin Burns should have been a Met. Max Fried should have been on the Mets radar.
Like, the Mets should have gone into this year with Burns, Manaea, Senga, Severino as their playoff rotation, and I would have bought into them as World Series contenders.
I think that you could have argued that they would have been up there with, the Dodgers if they'd done that and brought in Soto.
I don't think the quite Dodger speed, but I would have viewed them on that tier with the Yankees and Phillies, one below the Dodgers.
See, I would have put them above.
But that's also with the healthy Yankees with Garrett Cole.
Right. It's
just to clarify.
Crazy. We'll see how the Mets play. Lindor, obviously, notably a slow starter every year of his career.
I also know that we didn't put this in the notes, but I did mention it via text, and then I am just remembering now that you didn't say I got to talk about it. How about those Padres, baby? 4-0. Everybody told me that I was being crazy for saying that this talent, it wasn't going to matter about the ownership because they were too good. And they are undefeated right now, the Padres. So
I
I
think
need
we
my
should just mark
victory
this
lap.
as a dub for Dylan. Cancel the season. The Padres won.
Now, this
Padres
is a
World
win.
Series?
This is a win. And you know what? If the Padres are 4-158 at the end of the year, we could revisit.
But it's a win today.
But this is a weekly podcast. And 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, whenever we did NL West, I was told that this team was missing the playoffs and they might even be lower than the Giants. So I need to hold my ground and say, that's right.
I don't think I said that. So
So I didn't say
I think
I don't. Was
I
that
definitely said it.
that was Corey? That was some Corey as a Corey.
I
thing.
definitely said
and
it.
I was told for sure the Diamondbacks were better by everybody, by all three of you. Ben, who's
Well,
not
I
even
do
here.
think the Diamondbacks are better. I think they.
Well-
I think
Well, after they get swept by the Yankees, we'll see how you feel.
That's true.
the Padres probably get swept by the Yankees too.
Battle of the big bats. Yankees, Diamondbacks. And that kind of brings me to what I want to discuss next because the Diamondbacks have a big player hitting a lot of home runs, one MLB's player of the week. We'll talk about him. I want to note Wilyer Abreu of the Red Sox. Have you guys seen what he's been doing? He went
Yeah.
7 for 11. He's hitting 636. He had 2 home runs, 6 RBIs, 5 walks. He didn't strike out once this opening series. A 780 on base percentage, a 2.114 OPS. That's like Judge-like numbers. Not that it mattered because the Red Sox still struggled, but that's a heck of a start from Wilyer. And if they can get other guys going with Wilyer, keeping not necessarily this pace, but playing like this type of ball, the Sox are going to be dangerous, like we've all been saying. On the flip side, Twin starter Bailey Ober, he's going to be my dud this week. Now, he was sick, so he claims. Up 0 for 1, his ERA is 27. 2 2/3 innings pitched, 3 strikeouts, 3 walks, 8 hits, 8 earned runs. Hopefully he gets healthy and bounces back. But, not always a great look when you say, yeah, I pitched so poorly because I was bedridden on Friday and still pitched on Saturday. Just isn't a great look. Makes it seem like you're making excuses.
It doesn't just make it seem like. Is.
What about you guys? Who's your stud and who's your dud?
I mean, I just took a victory lap on the Padres. I'll do it again. My stud, El Nino, Fernando Tatis Jr. Batting .467, 1 home run, 2 RBIs only. So we'll get those numbers up. 3 stolen bases, a 1.263 OPS already. Tatis is playing amazing, and he's led the Padres to a 4-0 start. We talked about Tatis on this podcast 2 years ago when he got popped, and we said, can he still make the Hall of Fame? And the answer we kind of came to was because it happened so early, yes, because everything after doesn't have to be hit with a question mark. And he is opening up this season like he wants to compete for the NL MVP. And I absolutely love it because there's nothing better than rooting for Slam Diego to beat the Dodgers. I think that is just a consensusly fun thing to do at this point in time. My dud, we talked about the Mets. I'm going to double back around and start hating on them again. After singing praises for Francisco Lindor in our NL East preview series, he doesn't have a hit in 11 at-bats.
Does have a new kid, though.
I told you
It does have a new kid. So Lindor was active 9 months ago, but he has not been active to open up the season. So
come on, Dad Strength Lindor coming.
He comes back.
Hey, if it happens, he won't be a dud. But this week, a dud.
Well, much like Corey was saying, is the NL Player of the Week, Eugenio Suarez. I think I pronounced that right. He has 4 hits for 4 home runs, and 7 RBIs, 1 stolen base. I mean, they walked him twice, so one of them was an intentional walk already. So it's like, I mean,
Intentional walks at this time of year.
that's crazy.
Game 2, third inning. Imagine doing that.
That's just crazy. But it's like, so that's a really good start to the season for him. Someone who, I guess, another third baseman, or former third baseman, I should say, who's not doing so well. Rafael Devers, who's like 0-16, 1 RBI, 2 walks, 12 strikeouts. Like, is he throwing on purpose just
Do
because
you
like
think
Yeah. I don't think
wants
he's
out of Boston?
I know he wants out of Boston. I don't know if he's like necessarily throwing on purpose, but I do think that some of what his performance has shown is kind of vindicating why he so strongly wanted to play third base. I remember that when Giancarlo Stanton first had to transition from the outfield to DH, he wasn't a fan of it because you don't feel as much a part of the game and in a rhythm when you're just sitting and watching for most of the game. And that's kind of now what Devers is doing. He probably feels disconnected from the team already, just a little bit, at least based on the fact that they just kind of pushed him out of his position and he's been their star player for a while and he didn't want to do that. But also, he is completely coming into these at bats out of rhythm, ice cold, not in the flow of things. So, one, I think some of it is just an adjustment to a new role, but I also think some of it is not wanting to adjust to a new role and not putting his best foot forward. And I think it could certainly lead to him being traded at some point because Lord knows Boston could trade him for some bullpen pieces because they desperate. I mean, what are they? They're 1-3 to open the season, 1-4 now after the loss to the Orioles today, and their bullpen has sold them a couple of times already. You don't want that to write the story of this team with how good the lineup is and the starting pitching is pretty solid. You don't want the bullpen to be the reason that you're so down upon. I also want to preface that Aaron Judge was not available to be picked for a stud because if there is a Yankees fan watching that thinks, what that, like, how is Judge not a stud? It's because he was so good, we didn't allow him to be picked.
And for the same reason, we didn't want to throw more heat on Nestor. If you're a Yankee fan hating Nestor, there's something wrong there too.
I mean, it was available for John.
He was available for John.
He went
Devers. Rafael Devers was just, I mean,
Devers needed to be picked.
Yeah, it's just crazily bad.
But, Dylan, you can talk about Nestor now if you want, because I'm sure there was something happened that we should note in that series.
So new segment, kind of surprise, highlight of the week, just memorable moment is kind of the deal we're going with for this. And, I couldn't pick Judge for a stud, but you call it homer, call it bias if you want. The Yankees set a franchise record for most home runs in a game in game 2 of the season with 9. And in that game, 3 pitches to open up the game, 3 straight home runs. I was going crazy in my living room. I was texting Corey, and this was the game you missed the beginning of.
Yeah, I was working, and I was dead for the first few hours at work, and then all of a sudden, about 1 o'clock, I got swamped with work, and my phone is blowing up from Dylan. Just OMG, just at a loss.
4 home runs in the first inning.
I'm like, what
Judge's was like 470 feet or something. Like his was cooked out of there. I felt so bad for Nestor, but at the same time, I looked at my roommate and said, theoretically, if you think about it, actually, that's 4 straight pitches in a row for Nestor that have been home run. If you date all the way back to Freddie Freeman's.
Yeah.
And, I love Nestor, but I don't think you could dye your hair bleach blonde and then come out and have that performance. But the Yanks were on one. Everybody ate that day. First 6 guys in the lineup, should have parlayed it. That is the moment, though, for sure, from this past week.
It's kind of crazy. Nestor left and didn't talk to reporters. And then next day, the Yes Network broadcast decided to show Nestor on TV in the Yankee Stadium crowd. He was shown on the big screen, and he was given a standing ovation.
I mean, I'm sure they really appreciated him.
I don't know if the standing ovation was for all his years of service, being a pretty solid pitcher out of nowhere for the Yankees for the last few years, or if it was just for, that offensive showing he gave up yesterday or the day before, I should say.
Both.
Both.
Yeah,
Now,
both.
if Nestor, struggles the first 2 months of the season, is he a DFA candidate, or do they give up too much to bring Nestor in to give up on him?
I think Durbin was the guy that they most sought after in that deal. With Woodruff starting the year on the IL, I find it hard to believe that the Brewers have the depth to DFA Nestor, and he had a really good spring. So I think in the similar light to what we talked about with Devin Williams and his rough outing, Devin Williams only had to go an inning. Nestor's a starter. Like, he had to just kind of eat through it. I'd be really interested to see what he does. Obviously, it's not going to be as bad as the start of his last game. So,
yeah, only up from there. For me, my memorable moment type deal, I'm going to White Sox starting pitching. Now, it's not just one game, but their first series, their starting pitchers all went 5+ innings, gave up no earned runs, and then they all had 4 or less hits in their first 3 games. That's an incredible showing from a rotation that's pieced together with duct tape and balsa wood. Like, their rotation is nothing, and they showed out to start the year. Their offense is showing out, but the White Sox themselves, and then their starting pitcher specifically, that's something I really think we should highlight, because I wrote them off. I wasn't sure they'd get their first win until May, because that's how bad I figured they would be.
White Sox winning 100 games this year instead of losing 100?
No, I don't think so, but I think maybe they won't be the worst team in baseball, potentially.
Could they have a...
Benintendi's on a heater as well.
Yeah. First,
he could have easily been picked as a stud.
Like, here, think about how the A's 2 years ago were like the worst team ever. And then last year, everybody thought they were going to be bad, and they weren't good, but they were much better. They were a pesky team.
Yeah, at the end of the day, these are grown men that are professional players that for an entire year heard about how bad they are. There is motivation to be better.
John, what about you? What's that?
My memorable moment is Mookie Betts hitting 3-run walk-off home run in the 10th inning against the Tigers after losing about 20 pounds to stomach illness there, stomach virus or something like that. That's crazy.
That is
could take the stomach out of Mookie, but you can't take the heart.
Yeah,
he was a question to even start the season. You thought he might start on the IL,
and he's been good defensively at short even.
Yeah.
Now imagine
I more so was worried about his defense, to be honest. You question how much pop he's going to have losing all that weight, but he's just so pure as a hitter that I figured even he'd still hit for average, but playing a very demanding position at shortstop. I was like, do they move him to the outfield? Just maybe try and hide him in left or something? Nope.
Yeah. Now, let's kind of look towards next week. Let's look towards the future. Highlight a series. I kind of want to highlight that Baltimore-Kansas City rematch that we saw from the playoffs. Kansas City, they had Bobby Witt, the second best player in the American League, I think we can say pretty safely. Baltimore, they lost Colton Cowser. He broke his thumb diving into first base. Some say it's gutsy. Some say it's stupid. Doesn't really matter where you are in the sliding into headfirst into first base to beat out a throw type of mentality. He's done. The Orioles travel there, and they need to beat good teams. They're 3-2 to start the year, which is fine, but the Yankees are a team they need to catch. The Royals are 2-2. This is a team in their, level. And if they want to, not be viewed as a choker, the Orioles in their 2 big seasons haven't won a single playoff game. These are the type of series that are big for them because it shows what they're made out of.
Yeah, I for sure agree. And, I think some people that are Orioles fans might push back on you and say Gunnar Henderson is better than Bobby Witt. Gunnar Henderson won't be playing at this point in time. But, I do agree with you. And I'm going to piggyback off that because I think right after that is my series highlight from the next time we come back and talk. It's the Diamondbacks and the Orioles. because, again, these are two teams with something to prove. The Orioles won a lot of games last regular season. 2 years ago, the Diamondbacks were in the World Series. Last year, they were kind of nothing. And they brought in extra pitching this year. Both teams something to prove. And both teams in very competitive divisions where they're going to have to win a lot of games to win the 1 seed. And for the Diamondbacks, might not even be possible with the Dodgers, but the Padres are off to a hell of a start, and you can't fall too far behind.
My weekly highlight. My weekly highlights.
Absolutely, yeah.
Huh?
He said absolutely. He said I'm correct.
Absolutely. What are we
Dylan
talking
is
about?
absolutely right.
I'm correct.
My weekly highlight's going to be the Dodgers at the Phillies. So, and then this is like one that I think they can't really lose here. Want to get a good start to the season here. And I think it's like the Dodgers are the team to beat this year. I think in almost, you want to say almost the whole, like all of baseball, I think they are the team to beat, especially in the like National League. So this is going to be like a good test for the Phillies early on to see where they're at this year, considering that they kind of owned the Dodgers last year, I think only losing 1 game to them. So be interesting to see how that picks up again this year.
If the Phillies were to beat the Dodgers in this series, who would it be on the back of?
You want to say Harper? But I'm going to say it's going to have to be like a guy. It's going to be one of the other guys lower down. I'm going to say it's going to be like a Castellanos or Schwarber.
I think it has to be a full team effort anytime anybody beats the Dodgers.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, you could get like a great Zach Wheeler performance if he's pitching in that stretch where he goes 7 innings, 7 strikeouts and 1 earned run. But that to beat the Dodgers, it has to be a complete team effort.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's got to be a complete effort. And, it's a tough matchup, but it's one that the Phillies, I know it's early, the first 2 weeks of the season, but these are the games that matter.
Yeah. I mean, tiebreakers matter, man. I mean, if these are the 2 teams that, I know at least me and John think are going to be battling it out for the number 1 seed in the NL. These games can matter.
Yeah. Huge towards the end of the season, like huge.
But that's going to, do it for us. We'll see how these series play out. But baseball's back. It's exciting. Aaron Judge going for his
Will he have double-digit home runs by the next pod?
Is the chase for 70 on?
It's back. It actually is back. I just quick before we close out. He had a really bad March and April last year, but May on, he was on pace to break 62 again. He's not having a bad March and April this year.
And when he's on, he's on. He's not a streaky hitter. His streaks are, 100 games, 120 games in a row.
Yeah, when they asked him, are you going to use the torpedo bat? Nah, I've been pretty happy with the numbers I put up the last couple of years.
It's just fun, watching him get to play every day, knowing that I'm watching the greatest right-handed hitter of all time. You can argue Pujols, but outside of that, is there really a right-handed hitter in the history of baseball that is on par with what Judge has done? Every great hitter you think of is a lefty or a switch hitter.
Or has a steroid issue.
Or has a steroid issue.
I mean, because you'll get pushback. I mean, we could do a whole pod on it, but
yes,
A-Rod's in that conversation.
A-Rod's in that conversation, but then again, A-Rod's never put up the WAR-type seasons that Judge has.
What's Judge already at? 0.8 WAR for one game?
3 in a 3-game series. He's almost at 1 WAR already on the season.
Attaboy.
Think about that. If he averages 0.8 WAR in every series.
I'm not going to lie, folks. I cashed out of the Vlad Guerrero for AL MVP bet the day the Judge hit the 3 homers in the game. I said, never mind. I'll just take what I can get back. I lost half a unit, and I was like, I'll just bet on something else.
It's just fun to watch him knowing that, there's not going to be any media BS with Ohtani in that award because Ohtani's now out of the AL, is Judge hit 62 and they still tried to make it like,
will I be standing on the soapbox in September for Fernando Tatis to win the NL MVP over Shohei Ohtani? Yes, I will.
it's very possible. And you deserve all the credit when you do. But Judge is spectacular. If he keeps this up, we might have to have a full segment just on Judge and what he's done this past week because it's just incredible. John, I mean, you're watching him from afar, right?
I wonder if the viewers feel just like John, like any viewer that's not a Yankees fan with us that's made it this far, turned it off. Because John has to sit here for like the Yankees glazing the last 3 minutes of the pod.
They
don't have to.
Just skip ahead. It's not. I mean, at least they're not in the NL. It'd be different if I was hearing Mets glazing or Braves glazing for like.
I mean, the Mets are up 8-1 on the Marlins in the 5th inning right now.
It's the Marlins.
Oh man, the Marlins are dead already now. Let's kill them.
And yes, I do have David Peterson on my fantasy team, so.
But I don't mind it as much since it's like AL stuff, so I don't really mind that much. But I also have like a lot of almost all my family on my dad's side is all Yankees fans, so grew up with a lot of Yankees talk.
Smart family.
But I'm a Phillies fan, so. But
not all smart.
I mean, but Judge is he's such a good player, so I mean, it's hard, It's not like it's made up glaze. It's not like you're it's not like you're trying to gas him up for no reason. Like it's not you're blowing smoke. Like he's actually like a fantastic player.
Yeah,
and it's a very real threat that he hits. Like he can go like 60.
Did you see the Twitter Soto versus Judge home run counter? For some reason, it stopped at Soto 1-0. I didn't see any updates.
No, and on Friday I saw a lot of tweets about Soto and Judge, and a lot of the accounts got deleted over the weekend.
Yeah, it's weird.
I think people thought that Soto would be like a Judge caliber player. Like, don't get me wrong, Soto's a great player, but
not when he doesn't have Aaron Judge batting behind him.
I just always thought like Ohtani and Judge were on like their own tier up there, and
you were correct.
And then like everyone else in leagues below that.
Well, even think about going to the Padres. Soto had protection. He had Fernando Tatis with him.
Yeah. Now he is the protection for Lindor, and Lindor's 0 for 11.
All right, we'll revisit though. We'll do the Soto Judge stuff some more next week. Hopefully with Ben, we'll have Judge maybe 10 home runs. Wouldn't that be something?
Over under 10 home runs.
Yeah, let's check it out. Over under
by Wednesday when the pod drops, or by Monday when we record?
Let's go Monday when we record. He's got a full 3-game set versus the Diamondbacks. Over under 3 home runs.
In that series.
So
he'd be at 7.
7.
I'll take the over. Still in Yankee Stadium. Pretty hot. Facing the back end of a Diamondbacks rotation.
John?
I gotta take over too. Over 3. That's easy. That's easy.
I'm gonna call it a push.
Oh, lame.
Would you rather
then set the bar at 2.5?
Where's your Yankee hating self when it comes to predicting stuff and just say he goes?
I almost said the under. I really don't. I'm gonna take the. I'll be different and I'll take the under.
Yeah, I'm not a hater. I'm just different.
I mean, Yankee fan. I love Judge. I was in the building when he hit 60. I just feel like I have to try to be realistic so his greatness can always blow my mind.
Best of luck.
All right, that'll do it, though. Corey, Jason, John, Pauline, Dylan, Mel, the ghost of Ben Mandel. It's going to do it here. Yankees, Phillies, Mets, Judge. It's been a great first week for some, but we'll revisit again next week. For the Outsider Sports Baseball Podcast, signing off.